A Rutgers professor was interviewed by the race-baiting website The Root, and she babbled on for several minutes, spewing blatant racism. But it's this part in particular, coming from a professor, that really caught my ear. Listen.
I think that white people are committed to being villains in the aggregate, right? The real sort of issue here, and I've heard people sort of say it, is one, I think that white people viscerally fear. It's not that white people don't know, right, what they have done. They know. They fear that there is no other way to be human but the way in which they are human, which is to, so, like you talk to white people and whenever you really want to have a reckoning about it, they say stuff like, it's just human nature. If y'all had all of this power, you would have done the same thing, right? And it's like, no, that's what white humans did. White human beings thought there's a world here and we own it. Prior to them, Black and brown people have been sailing across oceans, interacting with each other for centuries without total subjugation, domination, and colonialism.
So we're going to kind of skip right over the explicit racism, only because what else is there to say about it other than this is explicit racism and et cetera and so forth. Reverse the races, white professor saying this about black people. They would be fired within 30 seconds, and there would be marches and rallies, and the president would be talking about it, and so on and so on. So we know all of that, which isn't to minimize it, but we know all of that, or at least the audience of this show knows it. But then, coming from a professor, her vision of history, where she says that black and brown people they weren't subjugating each other. What? Okay, go pick up any history textbook, or this is something you could this one you could Google. Look up a list of empires throughout the world, throughout history. You're going to see things like the Ottoman Empire, the Aztec Empire, the Mayan Empire, the Inca Empire, the Persian Empire, the Egyptian Empire, the Assyrian Empire, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These were not empires built and run by white Westerners or Europeans or white Americans, okay? But they're empires. And how do you, Professor, what do you think an empire is? How do you think an empire is established? The Ottoman Empire, when they were building their empire and it was expanding, were they showing up to other countries and other regions and kind of knocking on people's door very politely and say, hey, would you mind? Would you mind if we conquered you? Yeah, we got this empire thing going and we really want to grow it. And so we would love to conquer you've got some land here. We would love to take it. Would you mind? And they said, sure, yeah, go ahead and take it. Oh, great. And they shake hands. That's not how it worked. If it's an empire at any point in history, especially ancient history, they were grown by conquering and subjugating and killing and enslaving all throughout the world. Now, this is historical misinformation and historical illiteracy on multiple levels, because she also says that not only were they peaceful and not subjugating each other, which is a total fantasy, but that they were crossing oceans and interacting peacefully with the people on the other side of the ocean. That's also not correct. Now, there were plenty of non-white cultures who were, seafaring, like especially the Polynesians, for example. But nobody was traveling whole oceans and setting up lasting settlements until until Europeans were doing it. They were the first to do it. To cross entire unknown oceans, go to an unknown part of the world and set up a settlement. So she's also not correct about that. And by the way, the non-white, non-Western empires that were not traveling across oceans, the reason why they didn't travel across the ocean, it's not because they had some sort of ethical qualm with it. It's not because they said, oh yeah, there could be there could be usable land on the other side of this huge body of water, and there could be resources and there could be slaves that we could take, but we're not going to do that because we want to respect their autonomy and We want to, and they're going to be indigenous peoples and on that landmass, and we want to respect them. No, they didn't do it because they lacked the knowledge or the interest or the ability. Perhaps they didn't see it as in their interest to, there was enough that they could take and steal and conquer around them. They didn't need to travel across the ocean to do it. College professor, folks, college professor. And some of you in the audience are paying six figures. I mean, you are paying top dollar. You're paying enormous sums to send your kids to school to listen to bullshit like that. Think about that for a second. I didn't go to college at all. I dropped out of community college after one semester. That's what I did. And I could be teaching her a history lesson. I am far more knowledgeable than she is as a I don't know what subject she teaches, but as a college professor, I am far more knowledgeable than her. Give me that money. You know what? If you're going to spend $100,000 sending your kid, give me $100,000 and I will teach your kid. I'm not going to say I'm going to do it. It's not that I'll do a tremendous job, but I'll do a better job than these college professors will. You know what? I'll cut it in half. I'll do it for $50,000. Give me 50 grand and I'll condense it. I'll teach them in a month. They'll be in and out. How about that? Listen, hit that subscribe button right now. Do it right now. I thank you for your compliance. It is somewhat appreciated.